I'm Tom Shoemaker, and this is the second video to support the series Reading Alone Together. The first video, which is still available on YouTube, tells you what our process is going to be. This second one, I just really quickly want to capture for you what we did in the first session, that was this last Tuesday, and then point you forward to the next session, that's on November 1st, so about 3.5 weeks from now. So, let me tell you real quick that we went through 3 stories. There were about 28 of us. And everybody took a chance to read the stories. Now I pass them out as individual stories like this. I don't want you being overwhelmed by Bible. So we don't hand out Bibles, we hand out the stories, just like I would if it was Gilgamesh or anything else. And you read the story, and then we begin to collect questions together. This is not a teacher with a group of students. This is me leading a conversation of all of us sitting on equal level. I told the group the other day that every time I do this, I hear perspectives, questions, ideas, answers that I never heard before. And I love this game for that. We all bring ourselves to it, and therefore we can all see with fresh eyes if we just get those other voices out of our head for a while. Tell all the religious traditions, stand back for this session, because I'm going to read the story with just me and the text, and then put it together with a bunch of other people that do that. We did it with 3 stories. One was Jephthah and his daughter. That's in the book of Judges. It's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, and Judges. And that Judges takes place after the Israelites have come out of the land of Egypt, out of slavery, crossed the Red Sea, wandered the wilderness, conquered all those cities like Jericho and so on, and now they've settled in. Judges chapter 11 is the story of Jephthah, and then we read the story of Ruth and Boaz. Ruth gets her very own book in the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, but this is chapter 3 of that book, and it's the part where she ends up, we'll say, hooking up with Boaz, and I do mean that. And then we read the story of Samson and Delilah, also in the book of Judges, but we didn't have very much time, so we didn't get too deep into it. I can't go too deep into this, otherwise I'll run past the 15-minute limit on this video. So I'm just going to tell you the story of Jephthah and his daughter is essentially this. The Israelites were living like the 13 original colonies. They were 12 tribes who did their own thing. Just like Georgia took care of itself, while Virginia took care of itself. Only in the event of national threat did they come together. Same thing with the 12 tribes of Israel. And times all of a sudden got hard. And they were threatened by the Ammonites, the guys that lived on the other side of the Jordan River. So they came to Jephthah and said, lead us, lead us, lead us. And he said, okay, I'll tell you what. I will do it if you'll make me the head over you. They said, sure. So he makes a vow to Yahweh. Yahweh is the God of the Old Testament, the Lord. He makes a vow and he says, if you give the Ammonites into my hand, whoever comes out the doors of my house to meet me when I return victorious, that shall be yours, to be offered up by me as a burnt offering. Did you hear that? Okay, let's keep going. So Jephthah goes over, he fights the battle, he gets a massive victory, and when he comes home, the first person running out to greet him from his house is his daughter, with tambourines and bells on. And he says, alas, my daughter, you've brought me low. I can't take back my vow. She says, it's okay. You know what? Fulfill your vow. Just give me 2 months to wander the hillside to bewail my virginity. He says, no problem. So she goes away with her companions, comes back 2 months later, returns to her father. She had never slept with a man. So there, that moment, he does what he needs to do. He offers her as a sacrifice. We ask lots of questions about this story. I mean, the biggest question is, did he not realize that a daughter could run out of the house? He was looking at a human sacrifice. And if it's his only kid, it says he had no other son or daughter, that means there were only really 2 people in the house, his daughter and his wife. Wait a minute. And then the daughter, she says, oh, just do what you're going to do. Is she just really that compliant? Or does she misunderstand what the vow is? And she goes off to bewail her virginity, and you go, what does that even mean? It's like, is it a grieving process? And she says, give me 2 months. And you say, well, why 2 months? And then she comes back. And you go, why did you come back? If you knew you were going to be a human sacrifice, why would you ever return? Why don't you just keep going over the hills and over to Grandma's house? So we asked lots of questions about this. And there are a lot of things that we could clear up, like who the Ammonites were, who Yahweh is, what a burnt offering is. But we're not very good at figuring out exactly what was going on in people's heads. And so we get to explore. And then we try to put it together in a big picture story. We try to figure out, first of all, what was Jephthah thinking? And I'm thinking maybe Jephthah was hoping to sacrifice his wife and cover up. But I'm also thinking, how come Yahweh all of a sudden accepts human sacrifice when 6 books earlier in the book of Genesis he said, no, don't do it. And it looks like he not only accepts human sacrifice, but he likes it so much he gets a massive victory. Why didn't he step in? And why didn't Jephthah just say, okay, you know what, King's X, I'm not doing that. And what's the worst that's going to happen? God will strike him dead. It's better he strikes him dead than his daughter dead, don't you think? And why doesn't God step in like he did with Abraham? Jephthah, don't do it. Now I know you will not withhold your daughter. No, it's kind of a creepy story. But it does fit the big story of all of these judges. In this whole book, you've got people who are supposed to help gather everybody together, call everyone together when there's a military threat. And just like George Washington did, and then go home. But everybody that gets called together, they're losers. Samson, the only thing he does to the enemy is sleep with them. And Gideon, he's so afraid, he keeps testing God. No, seriously, you don't want me to do this, do you? Barak is so afraid, he's shaking in his boots. And Deborah says, look, dude, a woman will take care of this. No, this is a long story of a whole bunch of losers. And it leads up to the story of Kings. There are a lot of losers too. All right, the other story was Ruth and Boaz, and the story is simple enough. Mother-in-law, Naomi and her husband go to live over in Moab. Their sons grow up, get married, but all the men die. So Naomi returns back to Israel, but Ruth comes with her. She's a Moabite woman. She says, I'll be with you. Back there, they're two poor women, no husbands. And so Naomi says, we can fix this. And she tries to set her up with Boaz. And then she says, I got a plan. So she dresses her all up, waits till the night that their threshing is about to be finished. And then Ruth does her thing. Ruth waits till Boaz has eaten and drunk. They're celebrating the end of threshing, getting the grain loose. And then Boaz passes out drunk. And Ruth comes and stealthily uncovers his feet. He rolls over and he says, who are you? And she says, I'm Ruth, your servant. And he says, your loyalty, whoa, impressive stuff. So stay the rest of the night. We'll finish this off in the morning. And the next day, he says, hold out your cloak. And she does. Remember, she's naked underneath. And he puts a bunch of barley on it, and she takes it, puts it on her back, and goes home. And we're asking lots of questions like, first of all, what's it mean to uncover someone's feet? The answer is it's a euphemism. It's all over the Bible. It means to have sex with someone. We talk like he slept with her or they made love. Those aren't literally they had sex, but they're euphemisms. It's a way to say it without being crude. And in the Bible, that's easy enough. She uncovered his feet. And then he woke up. And I find that one fun. Did she uncover his feet while he was asleep, passed out? That's almost like a miracle. And then it says that she lay at his feet the rest of the night. So does that mean that the activity picked up again after they had this conversation? She says, you're a redeemer. And we're going, what is a redeemer? And a redeemer isn't really about any of this. A redeemer has to do for a person who sells themselves into servitude. They buy them out. I don't see how that works. When she comes back to her mother-in-law says, who are you, my daughter? And you go, what? I mean, you've been living together. So here's the deal. You read this story, and I got to tell you what it sounds like. Naomi, the mother-in-law, and Boaz seem to be working in cahoots. They keep repeating each other's lines as you go through the story. They seem to know what's happening, and poor Ruth is the little pawn in between. But Naomi says, he'll tell you what to do. Ruth says, what you tell me to do, I'll do. So she goes and waits till he passes out drunk, and then she uncovers his feet. And then she tells him he's a redeemer. And he loads her up and sends her home and says, your loyalty is incredible. And you got to ask, who's the loyalty for? Well, I'm thinking that they were in cahoots. She comes home. She is now officially married to Boaz. And that takes care of Naomi and Ruth for the rest of their days. And it's something that Naomi and Boaz seem to have engineered. Next time we get together, we're going to do the same thing for the New Testament. We're going to read a couple of stories. First, we're going to read the wedding at Cana. That's in John, the Gospel of John, chapter 2. And it's only about 11 verses long. So if you want to pick up a Bible and read it ahead of time, just think about it. Ask questions. Ask all kinds of silly questions sometimes. Let your mind run free. Forget what everybody tells you should be seeing, and just think about it as a story. And then the second thing we'll read is the story of Lazarus being raised from the dead. That ought to be good. That's in John chapter 11, I think. I'm not sure, but I think so. If you want the printout copies, send me an email, tom.shoemaker, SHOEMAKER, at mesacc.edu, and I'll send you those. And we'll look forward to seeing you. It's on November 1st. It's a Tuesday. It's 1:30 to 2:45 in LB 300 on the 3rd floor of the library. Come along and expect to see things you never saw before.